All right, so good morning and welcome. Thank you all for attending this morning's webinar, co-sponsored by the Tewksbury Library and the Wilmington-Tewksbury Chamber of Commerce. My name is Robert Hayes. I'm the Community Outreach Librarian here at the Tewksbury Library, and we're really pleased to help bring this all together. Before we begin, logistically, everyone is muted. I will unmute you at your request. We will be taking questions, however, at the very end. So if you have a question, feel free to type it into the chat box, but we'll take about 15 minutes at the end to do a more formal Q&A. Okay, so questions will be answered at the end. I can relay the questions from the chat box, or you can ask your question via video. But again, we're going to do that at the very end. We have an exciting lineup of 8 speakers. Each are having roughly 5 minutes to tell us everything they'd like to tell us about their organization and how it can help small businesses during these troubling times. First up on the agenda is Nancy Valley. Nancy is the longtime executive director of the Wilmington-Tewksbury Chamber of Commerce. And Nancy, I'm going to unmute you. And so Nancy, the floor is yours for 5 minutes. Thank you so much for being such a wonderful partner with the Tewksbury Library.
All right, thank you, Robert, and good morning to everyone, and welcome to all the small business owners that are on the call today, employees, and our fellow business partners, and happy Thursday to you all. First, I do want to take a moment to thank Robert Hayes from the Tewksbury Public Library for coordinating this webinar and really inviting us all to gather as a community to talk about where we're at, the resources that are available, and really field your questions and concerns that you still have out there at this time, and I'm sure there are many of them. For those of you I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, again, my name is Nancy Valley. I'm the Executive Director of the Wilmington-Tewksbury Chamber of Commerce. I've been in this role for about 13 years. Working with local businesses, providing marketing, advertising, relationship building opportunities, all really in an effort to promote and encourage economic growth within our 2 towns. So obviously, in the last couple of months, things have been a little different. My role has been a little different, and really, I have my efforts have been around providing information to our 250 chamber members around the loan relief programs, the PPP, the PUA, all of those type of programs, answering their questions on a day-to-day basis, funneling those questions to the state, getting responses and helping people, with their individual issues. We do get our information directly from the state, and I've been attending the weekly meetings with Secretary Mike Canale. And, I will say I'm so impressed with his team, his entire team, the work that they have done, the responsiveness to, chambers and to our questions on a weekly basis is really amazing. I do believe that they have provided a reopening report that is thoughtful, that is concise, and really, sets some really clear standards for reopening. And I believe Kevin's going to be talking about that a little further. I know that there are many questions still out there around the PPP program. Hopefully we can answer some of those questions on the phone today. And, I really just want everyone to know on the line that the Chamber is here as a resource. And we are definitely here to help promote your reopening plans. And we want to make you visible. We want to, get the word out about what your plans are and help you make connections and continue to answer your questions. And, we want all of our businesses, obviously, to not only survive, but to thrive. So I'm going to let my partners talk, and I'm definitely here to answer any questions if I can. And please feel free to contact the Chamber office.
Great. Thank you so much, Nancy, for those welcoming remarks. So next up on the agenda will be Mike Shampoo. Mike is a former selectman in Wilmington, and he's currently serving as the chair of the Wilmington Economic Development Committee. So Mike, let me unmute you, and Mike, you're good to go.
Right on. Hey, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Robert, for the invitation, and Nancy, I appreciate your words. Great to be joined by colleagues present and past. I really do appreciate the opportunity to chat. For me, at least this morning, I'm really looking to get a lot of information and maybe not be a source of information. The Wilmington Economic Development Committee was started almost now exactly a year ago. It had come out of a desire by myself and some of my colleagues to be the outbound, proactive voice of the town of Wilmington to the existing and potential greater business community. Really to be almost like a marketing engine for the town of Wilmington to draw businesses in and try to fill some of those very visible vacant buildings. Of course, all of that work, which we were really on great momentum and developing the bones and the foundations of a plan to do some of that work. And then COVID-19 was thrust upon all of us. And so really the committee had kind of gone into hibernation a little bit, trying to figure out what's our role, what ought we be doing right now. And we've got a meeting scheduled for next week to really redefine what our purpose will be in this, this existing COVID-19 and post-pandemic world, and how we can continue to support our existing businesses. And I think that will be the pivot for our organization, really to advocate on behalf of the Wilmington businesses to our local government. And while I'm not yet in a position to speak on behalf of the entire committee, I think that the voice that we will have will be one to our town manager, to our board of selectmen, to the planning board, to be as not lenient, but to devise ways that the town can help the businesses speed up their come back to life planning. And the things I'm thinking are, what will it take for a restaurant working under 30 or 40% capacity to be viable and to be profitable in this new economy? And perhaps they'll have some creative ideas about outdoor seating or a tent in the parking lot, or I don't know, I'm not a restaurateur, but I'm sure there are creative restaurateurs and creative business owners that will look for ways to allow their businesses to get to a point of profitability quicker. And what I hope that the Economic Development Committee can do, working together with our local authorities and with our state authorities, is come up with policy and procedure that will speed up that process. As we all know, sometimes permitting and going through the process of filling out applications can be a drawn out process. And we want to try to find ways to expedite that process so that the businesses can be profitable faster, even if it's a temporary measure until the pandemic is gone. So that's where we are today. I'm hopeful that we'll find some policy to put in place. Looking forward to working with our Representative Robertson and really getting advocacy at the State House to give the town the authority to make these kind of changes and measures. So thank you very much, everybody. I wanted to say if there's anybody in the Wilmington business community that has questions or ideas to share, they can do it to mshampoo at comcast.net. I welcome any ideas. Thank you very much.
Oh, great. Thanks so much, Mike. And just for the attendees, after today's session, I will be emailing out a contact list with the information for all the speakers today. So you'll be able to follow up with them via phone or email, and I'll also provide their organization's website address. So there'll be some follow-up opportunities certainly after the session. Okay, so next up on the agenda is Mike's counterpart in Tewksbury. Mark Kratman is the chair of the Economic Development Committee in Tewksbury, and he's also a selectman. Mark, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Robert. I really appreciate this. Mike, Nancy, everybody that's involved, I really appreciate the chance to speak and the fact that you put this together. Currently, we're working in Tewksbury much in the same way as Mike. We're always on the same page. We're currently working to try to expedite permitting, help the businesses, and be there for any questions and concerns that anybody has. Businesses are going to change. This epidemic has definitely changed how business is going to run, how people act, how people get together, and we want to be there to be helpful in any way that we can possibly. It's going to be a lot of concerns, a lot of questions that everybody's going to have, and then they may not know where to go. And that's going to be that's what we're here for. Recently, I appointed assistant town manager as our contact person for the town of Tewksbury. So Steve Sadwick is going to be our point person. We're going to have a committee together, much in the way the state has a reopening committee. The town of Tewksbury will have a reopening committee. So instead of having to go and ask questions about licensing through the selectman's office and permitting through the planning board or health questions through the health department, you're not going to have to go through multiple departments. We're going to put Steve in charge of it. You send in one email, one question, one call. He will then filter it and get the answers of what you may need. I've been working with our state delegation. I spoke with Senator Feingold. I spoke with Representative Robinson. They're working on trying to expedite legislation. A lot of the things that people are looking for, especially the restaurants and bars, are looking to do outdoor seating, as most people would expect, to get people away from, the 6 feet and try to use the best use of their space that they have. A lot of people have parking lots, areas, outside seating, and that has to be approved through the ABC. So instead of cutting through the red tape of getting licensing and those type of things, we're asking our delegation to work with them, and they already have taken it and run forward. I love the fact that they're already thinking ahead and they're working to expedite permitting and get those things handled. I've spoken with a couple of people at the ABC to try to get somebody specifically for Tewksbury to handle all our questions and concerns. All businesses are going to have different questions on how they're doing it. From oil change shops to hairdressers to nail salons, pizza shops, everything's going to change, and we're going to be here to help them. So that's pretty much what our goal is. There's nothing that's off the table that we will not listen to. This is going to be something that's going to be challenging. I always love a great challenge, and this is going to be roll up your sleeves. Let's all work together. I look forward to working with surrounding towns. Our town manager is constantly on the phone with the town managers from Wilmington, Woburn, Billerica, Burlington, and we're going to work to make sure that no one town is treated differently, and hopefully we all work on the same page so that, one hair salon isn't opening in Wilmington and not opening in Tewksbury. We don't want people to have to run to one city or town over another. We want to work together to make sure businesses get back to work, people get jobs, taxes start flowing through our community again, and everybody is healthy and safe in the way of doing it. So working together collaboratively, I think, is always the best way. My Board of Selectmen, we always work as a team. There's not one I, there's always our team. We work together. We have a great board, and I'm looking forward to working with them and all the other members of our boards, going from planning to health, permitting, everything that will happen. We'll work together, and that's the whole goal, is to make sure businesses get the resources they need, residents get the answers they need, and anything we can be here for, that's what we're going to do. So thank you very much for putting this together.
Great. Thank you, Mark, so much for those comments. Great content there. Next up on the agenda is our state representative, Dave Robertson, who represents the 19th Middlesex, which includes Wilmington and Tewksbury. And I believe Dave is on his phone. So let me unmute Dave. I'm going to find him. So Dave, you're up. And Dave, can you confirm the rumor that you've been out all night looking for the Tewksbury monkey?
To no avail. To no avail. I spent hours with it, was unable to locate it. But it only happened up the road from where I live. So it was a 50-50 shot where I thought maybe I'd pull in my driveway and see it face to face. But Robert, thanks for putting this together. And I could fill up a bit more than 5 minutes. And I apologize to folks. I will say my piece. I am then going to go and do a pre-recorded segment for Memorial Day and return hopefully in time for questions and answers. So I know people will undoubtedly have questions about the policies being explored by the state government. Mr. Kevin Kuros, who is scheduled to speak directly after me, is going to explore in depth Governor Baker's reopening plan, so I'm not going to steal his thunder, but I do want all the businesses on the call, as well as those who might watch it in the community through our public access or through the library website, to understand the resources that I might offer in some of our plans going forward. So our office is taking basically a three-direction approach to this. One's through constituent services. The second approach we're actively engaging with is being partners with our municipal officials. Both Mark and Mike were on the phone for the last weeks, bringing up things, discussing many questions that various businesses around have. As Mr. Kratman mentioned, what's my capacity? What's the feasibility of outside tents? My business kind of fits into one category, but also fits into another. And they've been wonderful local partners on that. And then lastly, of course, is our policy and revenue forecast moving forward. So for what we can offer for constituent services, both to employers and to employees, we've answered, goodness, I've lost count over the last few weeks, several dozen questions with PPP, EIDL loans, SBA questions, as well as those between private lenders that you might have a standing loan on. Whether we are calling the bank administration or whether you need me to call an employee, explain for them whether they should be contacting traditional unemployment or if they're an independent contractor, or having a discussion about what kind of health preventative measures are required to be put in place for your business. These are all things where we've handled across the board. Now, because each of your businesses are unique, it's not something I can, like I said, handle within the 5-minute time frame, but I urge you to call. We've successfully pitched a number of business protection plans forward to the governor's committees, and we can offer guidance on that. Other things we can offer your business directly, we have lists of PPE providers we've been keeping an eye on, and this was a big thing that another member of our Wilmington delegation, Senator Tarr, he was a leading force on. We're putting legislation forward in conjunction with the Attorney General to ensure that price gouging doesn't occur. We're also, and this is yet another bill proposed by a member of the Tewksbury-Wilmington delegation, Representative Ken Gordon. He's putting legislation forward that would allow, actually, if an employee during the phase of reopening was to become contaminated and ill and infected with COVID, to be claimed as a workman's comp. And that would hopefully save you as a small business owner rather than a one-to-one payout, because they're going to use their sick time or leave time instead to pay 40 or 50% to the full 100% with the insurance picking up in the intermediary. So, like I said, I found it difficult when preparing for this phone call. Robert was wonderful. He said, what would the businesses in the community like to hear from you? And I realized that umbrella is huge. So I highly urge everybody to reach out. Like I said, I'll return for the question and answer session. Restaurateurs, I would especially like to hear from. We're having a debate over Grubhub policies and other takeout services, as well as we're looking for folks to submit testimony about waiving the meals tax, which is something that Representative Skasha proposed several weeks ago. I signed on, but we need a little help from the community to put the pressure on to move this bill forward. So, Robert, I appreciate you setting this up, and I look forward to hearing from the question and answer folks when I return from thanking our veterans, as well as anyone that might reach out to the office in the near future for help.
Great. Thank you so much, Dave, for taking the time, and we look forward to seeing you back in about 20 minutes. So next up on the agenda is Kevin Kurse, and Kevin is a regional director with the Massachusetts Office of Business Development. And, you know, each speaker only has 5 minutes, so I'm not sure how in-depth he's going to go, but he will certainly speak on the governor's reopening plan that was announced on Monday. So, Kevin, your 5 minutes is started, and the floor is yours. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks so much, Robert. That's the second time Robert's reminded me that I've got 5 minutes, so he must know I'm a former legislator and can easily fill 5 minutes debating Coke versus Pepsi. So I'm the Central Mass Regional Director for the Mass Office of Business Development. I'm pinch hitting for the Northeast Director who could not be present. And for those of you who don't know much about the Mass Office of Business Development, I'll take 30 seconds just describing who we are. So we are an executive branch economic development office, the only one that exists actually. We report to Secretary Mike Keneally. And our job is to manage, our number one job in normal times is to manage the Economic Development Incentive Program. And a lot of you may be scratching your head and saying, I don't think I've ever heard of that, but you have. If you've ever heard of a TIF being offered by a municipality, the TIF, or Tax Incentive Tax Increment Financing Program, is part of the EDIP. In conjunction with that, if a municipality offers a TIF to a business, the business then can also request state tax credits to get some relief from their corporate tax liability as well. So in a normal non-COVID environment, each of the 6 regional directors, it's our job to walk businesses and communities through that process, and to also to almost really act as an outside sales force for all of the state incentive programs that are available, including the Workforce Training Fund grants, access to capital through our partners at Mass Development and Mass Growth Capital Corp, et cetera. So that's what we do normally. And obviously the last couple of months have not been normal. So what we've been focused on is making sure businesses are connected with the appropriate resources to help them weather the pandemic. I know we've got a partner from the SBA going to be speaking, so I won't talk too much about the SBA products, but we've spent a lot of our time helping businesses, as the representative said just before me, take advantage of both the EIDL loan program and the PPP program. There is one thing I would like to share, just as an FYI, before I move into talking about the reopening plan. And I know I am tight on time, but part of the CARES Act, in addition to enabling the PPP program, and this has not yet received a lot of attention, but there is something called the Employee Retention Tax Credit. And that is a separate program outside of PPP, and a business can take advantage of both. But our team at MOBD did a webinar with a CPA last week, and she'd indicated that her firm, depending on the nature of the business, may recommend that businesses forego the PPP program and focus more on the Employee Retention Tax Credit program. So I would advise any business who is still making that decision whether or not that they want to pursue funding through the SBA, to also take a look, have their accounting team take a look at the Employee Retention Tax Credit. It's another tool that was enabled in that legislation. So real quickly about the reopening program, and we're available, and I understand Robert's going to send our contact info out, so happy to answer questions by email or do follow-up calls one-on-one as necessary. But the plan that was announced by Governor Baker on Monday can best be found by simple Google search of reopening Massachusetts. And that will get you to the landing page for the plan. And the page is really, really well designed, very simple to navigate. And essentially it will show you, there's a link for the report that the committee put together after several weeks worth of work. There is a PDF available for the 4-phased plan that is being recommended. And then there also is a one-click readiness dashboard. There are a couple key criteria that is going to drive the rollout of the plan. And the readiness dashboard kind of shows, green light, yellow light, red light, where we are on a number of different components. That will be updated regularly. I'm not sure weekly or how often, but the key point that both the governor made on Monday and then Secretary Keneally, who hosted a webinar yesterday for some folks, the key point is that this is all going to be metrics driven, based on health data. So the 4 plans, and again, I know I'm really tight on time, but we are in phase 1 of the plan. The guidelines indicate that each of the 4 phases of the reopening plan will last at least 3 weeks. Okay. And the plan is for them to last 3 weeks, assuming that we don't take a step backwards on health data and other items. Okay. Some questions came up because phase 1 really almost has a sub phase. A couple things, open right away. A couple businesses, it was, construction, manufacturing, and religion, houses of worship, open right away. And then beginning next week, the 25th, there are going to be a number of others: lab space, office space, limited personal services like grooming, barbershops, beauty salons, those types of things. All of which are required to implement social distancing practices and safe practices.
Kevin, take another 60 seconds.
Okay, yep, we'll do. So one key issue that did come up: restaurants are in phase 2, and has been mentioned twice. There is an issue with outdoor space and expansion of outdoor space, and Secretary Keneally committed that is being worked on as we speak, both by the legislature and the executive branch. The last couple things I'll share is so the 3 weeks for phase 1 officially did start May 18th, this Monday. So if there's a question as to whether it starts on the 18th or the 25th, that 3-week period. So we're looking at first week of June as the beginning of phase 2. And the last thing I'll share with you is I will provide to Robert, and he can send out to everybody. There is a link to a PDF document. It's about 4 pages long that goes by industry, what the current state is, and what the projected opening is, assuming that the phases don't take a step back because of a relapse in the health metrics. So I will get this out there. I think it's a very valuable document. So, if you are a construction company, you can find yourself on here and figure out when. If you are an amusement park, you can find out when, that type of thing. So very nice summary, and I'll get the link to Robert, and he can send it out with everything else. So I apologize if I went over, Robert, but I'm available, as are the other 5 regional directors. We're here to help, and look forward to helping businesses work their way through this.
Great. Thank you so much, Kevin. Impossible task to cover everything in 5 minutes, and I appreciate the attempt. You did a great job. So next up on the agenda is Edwidge LaFleur. She is the Eastern Mass Director of the Center for Women in Enterprise. And give me one moment. All right, Edwidge, the floor is yours.
Yes, good morning, and thank you so much, Robert, for inviting me to be part of this discussion. And good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you. I will give you, for those of you who don't know much about the Center for Women in Enterprise, I'll give you a brief overview of who we are. We are a non-profit organization that was created back in 1995 with a mission to help entrepreneurs and business owners launch and grow their business. And to do that, we provide education and training on business planning, business management, as well as technical assistance. And we also help women-owned businesses, as long as they are 51% owned, managed, and controlled by women, to become certified to the WeBank certification program, which is a national private certification program. Since the COVID-19 epidemic, of course, we've pivoted like a lot of organizations. I also need to add that we are funded in large part by the U.S. Small Business Administration, of which we are a resource partner. And as such, we've been at the forefront of helping clients, entrepreneurs, business owners to pivot and get access to some of the funding, the EIDL loans and PPP, through not only education on the best package to choose from or to offer, as well as technical assistance to those who were in the process, going through the process of applying for a loan and need guidance from the CPA, from the lawyer. And so we've seen, we're very happy to report that there's been quite a few success stories, and we've held, currently for the past 2 months, we've held about 400 clients in this particular arena. Yes, and a lot of them, and we can say about 20 to 25 of those we've counseled have been granted loans, either IDL or the PPP. And of course, we've also had to turn into the virtual mode. So we've continued to offer our workshops and counseling sessions via Zoom or via different type of platforms. And the most interesting thing about this is that we've seen a spike in the number of people we've been attending our programs. So in fact, our numbers are pretty much triple or quadruple. And for the time being, we are planning to continue offering our programs the same way. And hopefully now when things resume, we'll probably go back to a more normal way of doing things. But it's been very heartening to see how people were quick to react and pivot and adapt to this particular epidemic, and while continuing to pursue their dreams and their goal of becoming entrepreneurs and business owners.
I muted myself, sorry. Thank you so much, Edwidge, for sharing that information. To be perfectly honest, I was unfamiliar with your organization prior to this webinar, so I will certainly provide your contact information to the attendees, and I'm sure some will follow up with you. So thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for taking less than 5 minutes. That's greatly appreciated. So next up on the agenda, last but not least before our featured speaker, is Nancy Girardi. Nancy is a regional director at the Massachusetts Small Business Development Center. So Nancy, I know you're here. I'm going to unmute you and you'll have 5 minutes. Nancy, the floor is yours.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you, Nancy. Sorry about that. I think we muted and unmuted at the same time. So
okay.
The floor is yours.
Great. My name is Nancy Girardi, and I'm the Northeast Regional Director of the Massachusetts Small Business Development Center. And this Massachusetts Small Business Development Center is a partner with the SBA and the Massachusetts Office of Business Development. And what we do is we help small businesses start, launch, expand, everything by providing one-to-one confidential free advising and workshops. And our approach to the new norm or back to norm or better than norm, however you want to phrase it, is, of course, it goes without saying that the pandemic and COVID-19 has hit small businesses hard. With that, small businesses are need to make a few adjustments, and we see it in 3 groups. We'll help small businesses with their reopening, and some of the businesses will need to make some adjustments to their, because of regulations or safety and hygiene or controls that need to be put in place. Some businesses will have to do a complete pivot, and that will be a reopening plan. And we will assist them in their reopening or their pivot plan of how their business might change. People who own salad bars might not be able to satisfy the first group of hygiene requirements and government laws. So they'll need a business pivot. So the first group is adjustments. The second group is a business pivot. But the third group is those that businesses that will come out of or Phoenix or rise out of this pandemic, because we view it as wherever there's a problem, in lies a solution, and that's what we're all here trying to find. Where there's a problem lies a solution, and that's an entrepreneurial opportunity. So sorry, entrepreneurial opportunity. And so we do have some businesses that are seeking our assistance in ideas that they have to help come back into this. Even small construction, I had them contact me. They needed help with a plan. They were going to be focusing putting up plexiglass. So who knew? But we're there to help. So again, my name is Nancy Girardi from the Massachusetts Small Business Development Center. I'm going to put my contact information up in the chat. We're here to help you now and in the future. Free confidential one-on-one advising and workshops. Thank you very much for inviting me to this Zoom meeting.
Great. Thank you so much, Nancy. Appreciate the information. Thanks for sharing your contact info, and I'll also share via email with the attendees afterwards. And today's featured presentation, which we're going to take about 15 minutes for, is Lisa Welch from the she's an economic development specialist with the Small Business Administration. So Lisa, I will unmute you. Well, Lisa, could you try unmuting yourself?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Lisa. So Lisa, give me 30 seconds. I'm going to share your screen or share my screen with your presentation. And but why don't you start talking, and I will share your presentation momentarily.
Okay, great. Thank you, Robert. First and foremost, thank you, Robert, and thank you, Nancy, for hosting this program today and inviting me to provide an update on how the SBA can be of help to small businesses in the area. My name is Lisa Gonzalez Welch. I am an economic development specialist with the SBA Massachusetts office. I'm one of a team of 10. And we are located at 10 Causeway Street in Boston, although we're all working remotely right now. But we really realize these are trying times, and we just wanted to share how we might be able to be of help to you. So,
I'm working on it. Keep going.
Okay, no worries. So for those of you who are not familiar with the SBA, we are a federal agency. We've been around for a while. We were created back in 1953 with the mission to help start and grow businesses. And we do that a number of ways. We provide counseling and training. We can help you get access to capital through an SBA-backed loan in partnership with our lending institutions. We can also help you grow your business by perhaps getting into the procurement arena, how to do business with the federal government, acquiring some of those contracts and subcontracts. In addition to that, we can help you export your product and service to other countries. And finally, we provide disaster assistance, which is what we're going to be talking about today. The next slide, Robert.
Sure, 1 second.
Nope, no worries. Yep, so the next one. Great. So we're going to talk about today, give a quick update on the various disaster loan programs that are available. And you've probably heard some of these acronyms like EIDL, which is Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, the Small Business Debt Relief Program, and the PPP, Payment Protection Program. The next slide. So again, we're going to cover the Paycheck Protection Program, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, the SBA Debt Relief, and we'll also talk about the SBA Express Bridge Loan. Next slide. We're going to go into detail on these. So let's start with the PPP. The Payment Protection Program. And I know many of you are anxious, as are we, to really get the information on the forgiveness. And as Robert indicating, we're waiting to receive guidance from on the program. There's a lot of moving parts. So once we receive that, I welcome Robert and Nancy to team up again and provide a webinar that will address the forgiveness piece of the Payment Protection Program. But in the interim, let's talk about it because there's still funding available through the PPP. The PPP, the Payment Protection Program, was really put in place to provide businesses 8 weeks of payroll costs, including benefits, to keep their business going, and also to pay for mortgage, rent, and utilities. Now, there is a forgiveness piece of it. 75% has to be used towards payroll cost. That means, and our team, we get calls every day, we get questions. Well, Lisa, I have 6 employees. You know, I really tried to get them back, but they're in unemployment. They don't want to come back. And we don't mean to be insensitive, but if you have 6 employees and your original 6 employees are not willing to come back, in order to get that forgiveness, that 75% forgiveness towards the payroll, you need to have the same head count. So whether it's the original folks that you had on or whether you bring new people on board, you have to have the original head count that you had. So that's something that I just want to make sure that folks know. In addition to that, the forgiveness is based again on the employer maintaining or rehiring employees and keeping their salary levels. We realize too, and we get calls again every day, well, you know, because of the way things are, we're not able to open our business. There's really nothing that our employees can do at this time. You have to understand that when they rolled out this program, we didn't really anticipate being into this, how far we're into it now. And it was really intended for you to have your employees, so when things got back to normal, you could just open your doors and start business as normal. as opposed to having to retrain new folks. And in addition to that, with a pandemic going on, the last thing we need is for people to be out there uninsured. So again, that's the way that the program is structured right now. One thing that we also want to stress, Robert, if you want to, yep, small businesses with 500 or fewer employees, including nonprofits, self-employed individuals, sole proprietors, independent contractors, veteran organizations, all of these are eligible and can apply for the PPP. And there's still funding in the PPP program. The next slide. So the application deadline to apply is June 30th of this year, 2020, or when the funds are exhausted. How do you apply? Well, you would go through an SBA existing lender, an SBA participating lender, or a federal institution, credit union, any of those. It's a 2-year term with a 1% interest rate. And you have a 6-month deferment on that. The next slide. So we just want to make sure, just to go over the program basics. Again, it's to help small businesses cover payroll costs for 8 weeks. You get 100% guarantee. So once you apply for the loan and it goes through SBA, the lending institution gets an automatic 100% guarantee, and they have 10 days to disperse that loan. It's a 2-year term with a 1% interest rate. 75% of the loan is forgiven if it's used towards payroll, and 25% can be used towards rent, utilities, that type of thing. Next, you can move forward, Robert. Yeah. So how do you find a lender? And that's a question we often get. Well, you can go, we have a website that has a listing of our lenders, but we give you a hot link here. And Robert, if you can share this with folks. And what we did was we put a little search engine where you can actually put in the zip code for Wilmington or Tewksbury, and it'll give you the lenders in the area that do PPP. So that'll help you identify the lenders that are participating in the PPP program. In addition to that, there's also fintech lenders, that include PayPal, Intuit, On Deck, Blue Vine, Funding Circle. So these are some of the folks that do the PPP as well. So again, there is funding available. So that's just an option for you. Next slide. In here, we give you information on PPP. One thing, 2 hot links again, one that I wanted to stress is our Treasury, the Treasury site. We go to the Treasury site every day. That's where we get our guidance. So there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of wrong information out there. So if you want to have the correct information, please visit the Treasury website or the SBA website. We update this every day. You can go in and find a search tool that I said to find an eligible lender. We have interim final rules listed there, how the programs work. Everything can be found on those websites. Next slide. And this is just a snapshot of the Treasury site. Again, you can go on here and get information on interim final rules. There's frequently asked questions. So if you do have a question, most likely you might get the answer. There's a lot of them on there that we've received over time, so they're addressed. How to calculate the loan, everything is listed on this site. So we definitely encourage you to visit this website. So let's talk about now the SBA Debt Relief Program. This is a program that is really great news because what we're doing is anyone who has an SBA loan, any borrower, whether it be a 7A loan, 504, microloan, what SBA is doing is we're paying the principal, interest, and fee for 6 months. So it's just giving a little bit of relief for our borrowers. In addition to that, we're also automatically paying the principal, interest, and fee of any new SBA borrowers, because we are still making it regular SBA loans, whether that be a 7A, a 504, or a microloan, as long as it's prior to September 27th, 2020. Next slide. One thing we wanted to share is that our 7A Express loan, there's a change where 7A Express loans are temporarily increased from $350,000 to $1 million, and that's through December 31st of 2020. And in addition to that, any upfront guarantee fee for veteran-owned small businesses is permanently reduced to zero. So no loan fees for our veteran-owned small businesses. So if you are a veteran or you know of a veteran that's seeking financing, please feel free to give them my contact information, which is on the slide deck, and we'd be able to provide them additional information on that. Next slide. So let's talk about the EIDL program, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. The Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, when it was rolled out, it was really with the intent to help small businesses to get back to where they were prior to the disaster hitting. So this loan has an advance for up to $10,000, and we say up to $10,000 because not everybody's going to get $10,000. It's $1,000 per employee. So eligible entities may qualify for loans up to $150,000. The interest rate is 3.75% for small businesses and 2.75% for nonprofits, with a term to 30 years. And I think most of the loans that I've seen go out 30 years. I haven't seen anything less than that. But these are working capital loans. They're not intended for leasehold improvements, for you to buy out your competitor. Again, it's really to get the business back to where it was prior to the pandemic hitting. Now, one thing that's happening is if you try to apply for an economic injury disaster loan today, you're not going to be able to. The reason being that right now we're only accepting applications for agricultural businesses. However, if you applied in early March or your application number starts with a 2, we encourage you to go in and reapply. And it's not gonna affect your original application that you did back in early March. It's not gonna move you where you are in the queue, but we definitely wanna make sure. And for those of you who did previously apply, it's gonna be funded. It's just that we're trying to catch up. There's a lot of loans in there. So I know that the SBA, if anybody looking for a job, we are hiring. We need help. I know that we brought on like 7,000 people to help with the processing, customer service. So on our website, if you are interested or if you know of someone who's looking for work, one thing I should mention is that we can certainly use the help. So they're welcome to come and join the team in helping us get through these applications. You want to scroll down a little, Robert? Yep. Keep going. Next slide. Yep. So again, right now we're taking applications for agricultural businesses. And I think the reason they did this is when we first rolled out the program, the agricultural businesses were not included. So we're trying to do that now. And any applications that are in the queue, those are being processed as well. However, if you did apply early on or your application number starts with a 2, we encourage you to reapply. Now, one thing that our team, every day we get calls and emails, Lisa, I applied, I don't know where I am, nobody's called me, what's going on? We are the SBA district office, and unfortunately, we don't have access to the disaster website. So we don't have the ability to go into the system and see where, Robert, your application is, which is frustrating for us. So if you have a question, we definitely encourage you to call the customer service center, which has an 800 number listed here, or you can certainly send an email to our disaster customer service team. And for the deadline for these loans, if you want to scroll down, Robert, is December. So December 16, 2020 is the deadline. So let's now talk a little bit about the SBA Express Bridge Loan. Yep, you're fine. So this is just what it sounds like, a bridge. And it's to help you as you're waiting to get the funding through your PPP or your EIDL, your Economic Injury Disaster Loan. These are made through SBA Express lenders. However, you have to have a relationship with that lender, and it's for loans up to $25,000 with a 7-year term. And what happens is you can repay that once you get your PPP or your EIDL. With some of those fundings, you can repay the loan. So no collaterals required, no fees. So again, it's just to help those businesses that need funding now while you await to get the funding from your PPP or your EIDL loan. The next slide. So we realize that these are trying times. We realize it's scary, it's confusing. You definitely, and I know Kevin mentioned, you want to talk with your CPA, your team. There's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of be careful scams that are taking place that we're hearing about. Please know that you're not alone. Through the SBA and our resource partners, part of the SBA family, and you heard from two earlier, we have SCORE. SCORE started back in 1964. It's comprised of men and women that provide counseling. They're mentors. They can get with you via Zoom, Skype, phone, email, and help you. We also have the Massachusetts Small Business Development Center Network, and you heard from Nancy Girardi, who's the regional director for the Northeast SBDC. There, and the Center for Women in Enterprise, Edrich LaFleur, the director for our Eastern Mass Center for Women in Enterprise. And in addition to that, the VBOC, the Veterans Business Outreach Center. All four of our resource partners are tirelessly, every day, meeting with entrepreneurs via Zoom, Skype, phone, email, and helping them with updating their business plan, their cash forecast, looking at their financial statements, helping them fill out the application. They also, in addition to that, are putting on webinars on business-related topics. So make sure that you reach out to our resource partners. You're not alone. We can help you through this, in addition to consulting with your CPA and your attorney. Next slide. We want to also invite you to join our Gov Delivery. We at the SBA Massachusetts office, we put out a quarterly newsletter that used to go out quarterly, but now goes out every other day because there's so much information out there. So if you would like to be added to that list, please feel free to sign up by going to sba.gov/updates. You will be on the pulse of what's going on, new initiatives, interim final rules, success stories, everything will be listed there. And this, if you do have any questions that you don't think about today, you can send them to our Massachusetts DO, which stands for District Office at sba.gov, and that's viewed every day, 24 hours a day by our team, and we address those questions. Next slide. Oh, Robert, I can't hear you.
Sorry, Lisa, I thought that was your last slide. I was trying to
Oh,
anticipate.
no worries, that's okay.
Do you want me to bring it
I
back?
wanted to leave time for your Q&A because I know we're running
That's what I was
short.
hoping for, yeah. What was the last slide? Can you visualize it for us?
It's just my name and my contact information, so that's fine.
And we will share that certainly with the attendees via email afterwards. So Lisa, thank you so much. You went through quite a bit in 15 minutes, so we really appreciate that. So at this time, we'll open it up to questions, and we've gotten quite a few questions via the chat. So what I will do is so I would say, just to set expectations, we started a few minutes past 9:30. I'm willing to go a few minutes past 10:30. So I think we'll take roughly 10 minutes of questions. If folks have to drop out early, I completely understand. Just remember that this is being recorded. But so we'll go till about 10:35 with questions. Let me just see here. Question from Robin. Has the state or town of Tewksbury done anything to provide relief for property taxes payments for businesses that are due soon? And what I'm going to do at this point is unmute our speakers here. Let me so Nancy and Mark and Edwidge and Kevin and Lisa's already unmuted, and I believe Representative Robertson has come back into the chat. I will unmute him. Let's see, there we go, and I'll unmute Mr. Shampoo. All right, so which of the speakers would like to handle this question? Has the state or town done anything to provide relief for property tax payments for businesses that are due soon?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Well, I can talk a little bit about what the state's view on this is, and then if Mark, who has been intimately involved in the local level, might want to explore a little bit of what their actions were on the town level. Like I said, this has been a partnership across all. So currently at the moment, with regards to whether it be local aid, which plays a heavy hand in local property tax relief, be it for residential or commercial rates, First, the governor and the legislature took action to extend these deadlines. That's a bit of old news, so I'll step past that one. Currently, the legislature and the Mass Taxpayers Foundation, which is the nonpartisan advisory board, is forecasting what our revenue predictions are for the Commonwealth. We're hearing anything from a $4 to $8 billion downturn for our revenues, but because of the nature of the virus, of our careful reopening, the numbers are fluctuating a little bit. The reason I'm bringing this up is because that's going to impact our local aid forecasts. As you know, businesses are instrumental, along with our residents, in supporting the police, fire, schools, and what have you. So while there's an appetite to discuss that on the state level, I unfortunately don't have any hard numbers simply because our economists haven't nailed down a rough prediction as well. That's well enough for us to move forward on. So the discussion is there on what the state can do. Actually, in preparation for this call, I spoke to Rick Jacquis, who is the Chief of Staff for Congressman Moulton's office. Folks might have seen the HEROES Act. Now, the HEROES Act is a piece of federal legislation that, as Congressman Moulton's office described, did not have all the pre-agreed or preordained components that the CARES Act did, right? So there was basically bipartisan universal agreement on providing the PPP, the EIDL loans, and the stimulus payments. So now Congress is going to Congress for better and worse. What Congressman Moulton's office and a few others have pushed for is segments for state and local tax relief. And their argument is that Massachusetts sends, for every dollar down to DC, we get about 88 cents back. We're asking the federal government, we being Congressman Moulton's office, asking the federal government to help us keep a state that's a financial powerhouse in the way. So long story short, over the next few weeks, you'll see what the federal government is also saying. You'll see what the state says, and that will trickle down to the local folks. So officials like Mr. Shampoo and Mr. Kratman can make the decisions for the best interest of the community with the tools that we're able to provide.
Great, thank you, Dave. Did anyone else want to chime in on that? Okay, so we can move on. I'm going to skip over Jamie's question, which I think is probably more appropriate, directed towards the businesses rather than our speakers here. So John had a specific question about his business. I didn't want to delve too deeply into individual businesses, but he actually raises a really good point, and I suspect there's lots of businesses, you know, with the same issue. He runs, you know, a small gym and a personal training facility, and he's sort of been lumped in with larger gyms. So he has the ability to control attendance, promote safety protocols for his members, and he wants to know what his best route is for, you know, kind of getting recategorized and not being lumped in with the large commercial gyms. I don't know if anyone wanted to tackle that.
Yeah, Robert, I mean, I answered that question in the chat, but for the benefit of those who don't have access to the chat, they're on their phone or whatever it may be. The short answer is on the landing page for the Reopen Mass, there is a link for businesses to ask questions specific to their business or to post insight into their business and why they might be different. It's been the policy of the administration back when we were defining what essential businesses are and are not to offer individual waivers for businesses, but rather to take them in aggregate and say, you know what, maybe there really is a unique difference between small gymnasiums and large commercial gymnasiums in this case. So we're encouraging everybody who has questions about, well, how does this apply to my business? We're a little bit different, you know, yeah, but that kind of thing, to please voice your concerns. I will 100% commit to you that every email sent is reviewed by a member of the economic development team. There were over 8,000 emails came in during the essential services period when we were defining those, and each of us had hundreds to review, categorize, and identify, and all that information was aggregated and used to update the FAQs that were updated probably every week, every other week regarding essential services. So please take advantage of that link, ask questions, provide information about your business. You can impact the plan.
That sounds like the perfect answer. So thank you for that, Kevin.
And I'll just add to that. I know that they are definitely aware of this. We brought this up at our call last Friday, and they did say that they were evaluating early openings for an earlier opening for folks like personal trainings and small gyms, things like martial arts. You know, there was kind of a bunch of things that we brought up and plan to bring up again tomorrow. So definitely keep bringing those issues up.
Great. Thank you, Nancy. Next question is for Lisa. Lisa, why were the idle loans capped at $150,000? And is there any potential of that amount being raised?
The reason that they were capped is to ensure that there was a lot of interest, so we want to make sure that there's enough funding to spread out, and it could potentially be increased. But as of right now, that's where we stand.
Okay. Oh, I see Kevin and John had an exchange in the chat, so we're good there. Let me see here. It was difficult for me to see while I was sharing the screen, and I couldn't see comments or questions. Let's see here. So can we delay property tax payment and not worry about interest and late penalty fees or foreclosures? So another question from Robin. Alex from the planning department, sorry if I'm miscategorizing your department, Alex, provided some information. And as Mr. Kratman said, I know that, Dave, I'm going to temporarily mute you just for a sec. I know that Mr. Sadwick is the contact in Tewksbury. Mike Shampoo, and I'm not sure where Robin is based, whether it's Wilmington or Tewksbury, but Mike Shampoo, is there a sort of a point person in Wilmington who's handling all these issues and kind of streamlining things, or do folks just contact the town manager's office?
Well, yeah, I would say it's one of two. The town manager's office is always a good place to start with any questions along these lines. I think it might go through his office or the assistant town manager or Valerie Gingrich in the planning office. I know this is a tax-related question, but as director of planning and conservation, Valerie has her fingers out into the rest of the departments around town hall. So she may not love that I just volunteered her, but she is a good resource for any of these questions. And I would recommend, at least for the time being, until we can be more formal about implementing some type of communication team like Mark has in Tewksbury with like a subcommittee, until we get to that point, I think those are the right places to go.
And so to directly answer Robin's question, though, definitively, we don't yet know if interest and late penalty fees will be waived. Do we know that yet?
I'm not aware of that kind of a policy in place, certainly not in Wilmington. I don't know if there's any activity happening at the state level. I don't know if Kevin, if you have any insight there.
Kevin does not, okay. I think miraculously, I apologize if I missed any, but I think we actually covered all the questions and we went an hour. So I want to thank all the speakers. What I will do.
Can I just add a couple more things?
Oh, go ahead, Nancy. Absolutely.
Okay,
You're the co-host.
I just wanted to add to Kevin's presentation just a little bit. You know, I know that the reopening plan came out, and I just really want to make sure that people have gone on mass.gov/reopening and have seen the tools that they should be using. One being the control plan, the COVID control plan that they need to fill out. And then the attestation poster, and I have these all displayed here at the chamber office, but the poster, the employee posters, the workers posters, it's very clear what needs to be done for you to reopen. And, you know, hopefully maybe we can have a follow-up call and go through this a little bit more if folks still have questions. But we will definitely be continuing to reach out to our chamber members to make sure that all of these things are done in advance of their reopening. And I also just wanted to bring up PPP one more time. I know that a lot of folks on the call today were looking for more information on the forgiveness program. Guidelines, you know, we just got some guidelines yesterday. I did send out what the most recent information to our chamber members. And I actually just got word that there may actually be a decision today through the Senate, and Dave, you might want to speak to this. that they may have some additional information and guidance on the Paycheck Protection Program. But what we do have is kind of out there, and again, Dave, do you want to add anything to that?
It sounded like Dave was traveling 90 miles down the highway. So, Dave, I'll unmute you temporarily, Dave. Let's see if you can chime in here. Can you hear us, Dave?
Okay, is this better now?
Yeah, you're good.
All right, I apologize about that. No, as Robert did guess, I was working remotely from the, like I said, the local cemetery with the pre-recording of our Veterans Day ceremony. So I apologize for the rough office conditions and that spilling over.
That's a valid excuse.
As for,
I'm
sorry, say again, Robert?
That's certainly a valid excuse. So go ahead.
Well, thank you. So as for the PPP guidelines on the federal level, again, as the state representative, my point of contact, who has been quite helpful, and this is maybe not directly related to small businesses, but for you small business owners who may or may not have received a stimulus check, they've also been helpful on the stimulus check issue. But Congressman Moulton's office has provided a fair amount of context. Now, granted, this is what they view the political landscape moving forward with regards to PPP. And this is something actually I'm also going to take a little tangent on it and comment, because I've had a few business owners reach out with employees who do not want to leave unemployment to return to work, and they're worried about their PPP potentially becoming invalid. According to Congressman Moulton's office, the push from the congressional Democrats, but the agreement in Washington in a bipartisan spirit, is that these PPP loan forgiveness applications are going to be fairly liberally interpreted. And I don't mean that as in liberal in the political lens, but as in they're going to be very understanding that, the SBA moved an unprecedented amount of, I think it was about nearly 30 years worth of loans in a little bit over a month, which is just kudos to them for doing so. But as for what the Senate's developing out today on the federal level, I'm sorry, I cannot speak exactly to that, but I can most definitely check with Congressman Moulton's office and provide updates to anyone that wants to check in, because Congressman Moulton's office has been very responsive. And again, not related to small business directly, but if you also haven't gotten your stimulus check, Moulton's office has been instrumental with that as well. So
I think what people's concerns are around PPP is, around the forgiveness piece of it. And so what I would, be looking to see come out soon is that possible extension from the 8-week period to possibly a 24-week period. So I think that would be a key piece that people are looking for. So, I think that I will try personally to maybe, set up a additional webinar for especially, any of the Wilmington and Tewksbury businesses that want to join and get some folks on to talk, a little bit more through PPP and, questions. And Kevin, maybe you can join us again and questions, with the reopening plan.
please, and Robert, could I add one more thing to that, if you don't mind?
Go ahead, Dave.
Thank you. So I think it's a great idea. Like I said, the Congressional office has been great partners on this, and it is above my level. So my service to you, the small business owners, in this manner, is being a conduit. The reason I asked Robert for a slight extension, for those whose ears perked up when I mentioned, you might have an employee who's not thrilled about coming back, or says, I'd rather stay on unemployment. Does that help you out? Well, it certainly won't. So the advice from our congressional delegation, as well as one of the senator's offices, our federal senator's office, to be extra clear about that, is to extend an offer out in writing. Now, this is just preliminary guidance, and you'll see some things coming out over the week. As I'm sure was touched upon by Kevin, Lisa, and other members on the call, I think Friday there was 12 pages or so from the Treasury and guidance that was issued out in clarification. But if you have this employee who doesn't want to come back to work, what I've been advised to relay to everybody is to extend the offer. And remember, it's got to be for the same rate roughly the same hours in the same position. And if there's a refusal, document, document, document. We know you're worried that it might count against you, but we also understand that you're doing everything to give this person their job back. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you can't hold a gun to their head. So we're going to be understanding and flexible about that. So again, if anyone has very specific questions or they fall into a gray area, for example, maybe that employee is protesting returning to work because of a medical issue, call directly. We keep all of your inquiries private, and we can get you that legal discretion that you need on this and a little bit of clarification.
Nancy, did you have any other questions for Dave or any of the other presenters?
No, thank you though, to everyone for joining us.
Great. And just for the Tewksbury businesses in the chat, I did post a link that you can find on the Town of Tewksbury's website's homepage. It's everything you need to know during the COVID-19 state of emergency in Tewksbury. And towards the bottom of that page, there's a good like 10 or 15 resources for businesses. And I think Tewksbury is taking a really smart approach. And I'm not just saying this because my boss's boss's boss is on the line, but I think, streamlining it, having one person in charge, having a reopening committee, I think makes a whole lot of sense, and perhaps Wilmington will follow suit. Does any of the speakers have any last minute questions or comments or?
Yeah, just one other thing, Robert.
Sure.
I had spoken earlier about the summary document that shows industry by industry what the current timelines are. I posted a link to that in the chat, so I would encourage everybody that has access to the chat to read through that to see how your industry, as the plan currently is laid out, what the timing is there. And again, subject to change based on any relapse in the health data metrics, but that's what we're looking at right now.
Great.
Can I say something?
Sure, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, my name is Robin Veronica, and I don't have a business, but I'm thinking of starting one. And I'm starting a watercolor business, an art business, teaching artwork, and I want to know where I get started.
So this will be our last question. Would any of the speakers like to answer Robin's question? She wants to start her own small business. How does she go about doing that?
Yep, I can take that. This is Lisa. So Robin, if you contact me, I'll certainly connect you with our SBA resources that can be of help to you as you're getting ready to launch and grow your business with counseling and training, whether you need access to capital.
Oh, I do, yep.
Great. And so,
Can I ask
Robin,
what town you're in, Robin?
Yeah, I'm here.
And
Hello?
what
Robin,
community?
go ahead, Mike.
And what community will you be running your business in?
Tewksbury.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Good luck to you. I hope it's tremendously successful. We wish you well.
Well, thank you. All right, thank you so much. And
Robin,
thank you, Lisa. I'll make sure you talk to me.
I encourage you to reach out to the Chamber of Commerce as well. We'd love to be here for you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Robert, can I make one last comment?
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, so thank you for bringing that to everyone's attention, just in case anybody didn't see it in the chat. You brought it up, but please go to our town website. What we're asking is to work with us and to help you be prepared. If you have something that you want to change and you have changes to your businesses, and everybody's going to want to have to change something, have a plan. Have a reopening plan, prepare something for us to review. We'll gladly work with you. We'll gladly try to expedite permitting. We'll listen to your concerns. Won't send you from department to department. That's why we created a reopening committee. All the questions are on the website. You can go there. There's guidelines and guidance for every thing, and it's going to change as we get guidelines from the state and how everything is continued to reopening. But please go to the website, have your plan prepared, submit it, and we'll gladly get back to you to help you get those questions. But just go to tewksbury-ma.gov. You'll see the COVID-19, and there's a reopening plan there. Submit your thing to Steve Stavrick, which will have the link up there, and you can just send in an email to Steve, give a phone call to him. He'll coordinate it, bring it to my attention, bring it to all the other departments' attention, and the committees and the selectmen and everybody else will work to help you. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Mark. So I want to thank Nancy Valley, Mike Shampoo, Mark Kratman, Dave Robertson, Kevin Curris, Edwidge LaFleur, Nancy Girardi, and Lisa Welch for this morning's webinar. Webinar has been recorded. It will be shared with all the attendees. In addition, within the next 90 minutes or so, I will send out a feedback survey and also the contact information for all the speakers. I'll also share some of the links that were shared in today's presentation and in the chat. And that'll just about do it. So I want to thank everyone for coming out this morning, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Robert.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you all.
Thanks all.
Yep, have a great day.